All right. Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Wilson, your guide here at Simple Scrapper. Welcome to this week's episode of Simple Scrapper Live, our weekly broadcast bringing you all of the latest and greatest in the memory keeping world with a focus on how to keep it intentional, purposeful, and of course, simple. We're all about making sure that your hobby is practical and fun here at Simple Scrapper. This week, we're going to be talking about staying creative away from home. I am thrilled to be continuing our discussion from last week. So if you haven't checked out that yet, you can see that at our Crowdcast profile. That's crowdcast.io/simplescrapper. And I'll make sure that's linked up in the comments here as well for you guys. And that's where you can see all the recordings from previous episodes of Simple Scrapper Live. Last week, we talked about project approaches for your travels and vacations. And I shared a range of different options for keeping it simple, fun, and doable. And this week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the process and how do you prepare for going on a trip? What are the types of things that you should bring or not bring? And really, how do you approach getting ready so that you can feel ready to jump in when you get home and actually create your project? So I want to welcome everyone here who's watching live on Crowdcast. That's where the action happens. So wherever you're watching, if you're already on Crowdcast, welcome. I'm going to share a little bit of details in a moment on a screen about where you can submit questions and how to share this with others. But if you are watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, I want to invite you to find that link to jump on over and meet us on Crowdcast where you can participate live with others. This broadcast is always multi-streamed out to different locations so we can reach as many people as possible with our community. Simple Scrapper is a place that I developed in 2008 as a way to bridge the gap between the old world of scrapbooking and the modern world. We are busy, on-the-go gals, most of us gals, and I wanted to find a way to make scrapbooking totally doable and have it fit into your life and really be a fun and rewarding hobby that fills you up. All right, so I'm going to switch here to the screen share. Just a second. Oops. All right, I'm going to share that. And then I'm going to make sure that's zoomed in. Last week we did a split screen and a lot of folks said that was way too small. So I'm going to bring that into focus for everyone. All right. Okay, so this is what the Crowdcast presentation looks like. And if you can see, there's two red arrows here. One points to the share button. And so if you are watching on Crowdcast, this is a public free opportunity every single week. I'd love if you shared it with your friends on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you hang out so you can invite your friends to join us here. And then of course we have the big red button. And the big red button is where you can submit a question for me to answer live on this presentation. And I'll be trying to get through as many of those questions as I can today. If you are participating, you can upvote questions as well, and I will tackle the ones that have the most votes first. And of course, over on the side, you can see the chat area. I love Crowdcast because there's a separate question place and we can focus on what the questions are, but then you can also chit chat with all of your scrapbooking friends while I am presenting live here. All right. So again, today we are talking about staying creative away from home. And as many of you know, I am not in my regular location. I am away from home myself this week. And so I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about ways that I kind of bring my scrapbooking with me, which may not always be totally a literal way of interpreting that. It's how I bring the scrapbooker's mindset and perspective on any kind of journey, whether it's just a day trip or it's 10 days away from home. So today we're going to talk about three main things. We're going to talk about what you should be focusing on, what should be in your head as you're preparing to go on a trip or while you're on the trip. So I'll be talking about some of the things that I'm keeping in mind this week while I'm away from home. I'll be talking about what supplies that I recommend you bring, and oftentimes it could be what supplies that I don't recommend you bring. And if you've been here around at all, you know I always talk about personalization. So this is about customizing your hobby to work best for you And so the things that I bring on my trip may not work best for you, or the things that your friend Susie brings on her trip may not work best for you. So it's all about thinking about what's really going to make the most sense on your adventure. And then, of course, how to get ready. What are the types of things that you can do before, during, and immediately after your trip so that you can really dive in and scrapbook it while it's all still fresh in your mind. As always, these episodes of Simple Scrapper Live are sponsored by the Simple Scrapper membership. That is our paid membership community. It's been going on since the beginning of 2011, and we have a community of well more than 500 women who are just some of the warmest, most generous women I've ever met, and I'm so privileged to be their guide each and every month as we work through the challenges of being a memory keeper in this modern world together. If you visit the sales page, and if you're on Crowdcast, there's a big green button at the bottom where it says sponsored by the Simple Scrapper membership. That will jump you right over. This is what the page is that shows you all the information about becoming a member. And then once you were to log in, you can see we have this beautiful hub that showcases our brand new content. We have a beautiful PDF magazine full of examples from our creative team each and every month. We have a resource library full of sketches and templates and previous classes and ebooks, and it's huge and gigantic, and I really see it as a place for you to turn to when you need new inspiration. But really the heart of our community is we have a private Facebook group, and we have these ongoing events. We have events every single month, and then we have a big quarterly online retreat where we all gather and reset our hobby for another season of scrapbooking. So it's just a fun place, and I like to consider it your hub in the online world for staying on track as a scrapbooker, keeping your priorities in mind and knowing what's really important to you, and so you can keep making progress and moving forward as you gather inspiration from all around our community. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to simplescrapper.com/join, or if you're here on Crowdcast, just click that green button. And then, of course, next week we will be back with another episode of Simple Scrapper Live. Now, next week is going to be extra special because I'm going to be talking about the new rules of scrapbooking. This is also the name of my ebook, which you can find on Amazon. And next week, if you don't have a copy yet, it will be free on Amazon. So I'm really excited to be sharing that presentation again. It'll be a brand new PowerPoint, just like the one you see today, with a little bit more detail. I expect to even go about 40 minutes next week to really dive into what the 5 new rules are and how you can apply them to your memory keeping process. All right, so let's jump into today's presentation. So first of all, I want to talk about what you should be focusing on when you're away from home. What are the types of things you want to be keeping in mind as you are kind of bringing this memory keeper's persona with you on a trip? So the first one really ties to last week's discussion, and it's what's the project that you plan to create? You don't have to have a perfectly clear vision, but you should have a good idea. What is it that you want to create about this trip? Are you going to bring the photos into your regular annual album, just your ongoing scrapbooking, or are you going to do something special? And if you're going to do something special, what are the types of photos and supplies that you're going to need? If you can at least have a general sense of that before you travel, you'll better be able to prepare and kind of keep in mind the photos that you take, those stories that you write down, and how you can get ready so that you can dive into that project when you get home. I also want you to be keeping in mind the themes of your journey. And before you leave, you may not have a sense of what that is. You might or you might not. And by themes, it's often the things that underlie the story. So let's just say you're taking a Disney vacation. And so the Disney vacation is the context that you're going to Disney, and this is the backdrop. But the themes of the journey could be that this is a first trip to Disney, or this is an anniversary trip to Disney, or this is the first time that this group of people have traveled together, or it's the first time that you've been to this part of the country, or what's going on in your world, what's going on in the lives of yourselves, your family members, your children, that make this a unique adventure. And when you go to scrapbook, those are the things that are really the most often the compelling and interesting to tell amidst the backdrop of whatever it is that you do. And so I want you to always be thinking about, why does this matter? How does this fit into the story of my life? Because when you have that in mind, you'll better be able to know exactly what to write when you sit down to scrapbook, and you can extend beyond the facts of what you did. All right, here. So the third suggestion in this section is that I want you to focus on actually savoring the details of the moment. And I think sometimes we get a lot of advice on you need to be taking pictures and recording, documenting things and saving all the memorabilia. And yes, you should do some of that. But what's most important is that you are present with your family, with your traveling buddies, you're present there, and that you are, I always say it like taking pictures with your mind's eye. You're really looking at the details, savoring the feelings of the experience, how it makes you feel, talking with your family members about how it makes them feel, and just soaking all that in. Because there's so much of a temptation that leads us to then being removed from the story because we're just the documenter and we're not part of the story. So I want you to remember that you being part of the story should be almost your number one priority, and that the documentation can come later, and it'll be that much more rewarding to document later because you knew that you were a part of it and you really experienced it to the fullest. All right, switching gears here. Now, what supplies should you bring? And I know I already looked at some of the questions that have been answered. This is going to be one of the topics that I know you guys are really interested in. And I have a range of answers because I've done a lot of different things myself. So on this particular trip, I didn't bring any supplies other than my phone and my laptop. So the first thing you should make sure you have is, of course, your most used camera. And what that often means is that's most often going to be your phone these days. I did not bring my digital SLR on this trip, in part because we were flying. I might have considered it if we were driving, but even on my spring break trip where we did a road trip, I did not bring my big camera. I felt that my phone was more than sufficient, even in low light conditions, and took beautiful photos. And I just didn't feel like I needed to have the weight and the bulkiness and the awkwardness of bringing my big camera around. So I think that's definitely a departure. I would say even a couple of years ago, I would have no hesitation brought my digital SLR with me, but our phones are so powerful now, I'm not sure it's necessary. So for you, you should be asking, what is my most used camera and what's really gonna do the best job and be able to go in the most different places with me? What's gonna be the most portable so it's never a burden or never a question, that you'll be able to get the shot when you want it. And then of course, you need to have a simple way to take notes. And you can see here on the image, this could be pencil and paper, but it can also just be an app on your phone, the Notes app. I like Google Keep. Google Keep is kind of a sticky note app that's part of the Google ecosystem, and it's cross-platform from web to any of the mobile devices. And it allows you to jot down notes and access them anywhere. Some people use Evernote. There's lots of different options here, but it's always good to just have a way to document something when it's in the back of your mind. And if it's on your phone, you can often just type it in really quickly. If you're a pencil and paper fan, then definitely bring that along as well. And then also still remember that other point before about being present in the moment. Jot things down when you feel like, oh, I can't forget this. I really want to remember this. Or even do a voice recording or a video. But remember that it's more important to be in the moment and soaking that in, because your memory is very powerful and a lot of that will come back to you later. All right, then of course, the actual real supplies. So here's an actual photo from one of my trips. This is the one where I probably took the most supplies with me. I took a paper trimmer. I actually took my entire album with me because I was creating an 8.5 by 11 album where I put a lot of memorabilia directly in pocket pages. So as I brought the memorabilia back to the house we were renting, I was trimming it down or just sticking it in pocket pages, and I was building the album as I went. I also brought, let's see, what else did I bring on that trip? Not much else. I didn't actually do any real scrapbooking, but I was really focused on the memorabilia. I brought some craft cardstock and some white and black pens on that trip. And I don't believe I brought a portable printer on that particular trip. Now, a similar trip the following year, I actually brought just a tiny little Ziploc bag of supplies that had a pen, some adhesive, some washi tape, and my stapler. I'm not even actually sure I had regular adhesive. I think I might have just brought the stapler and washi tape. And then I also brought a tiny little portable printer, and I made a very, very tiny mini book, and I showed that last week in last week's presentation. So it's really going to range from what you want to do. How much time and energy do you want to put into creating while you're on your trip? And what's really going to help you document the moment? Now, I've had some conversations with folks who wanted to bring other scrapbook projects on their trip. So that's how they wanted to use their downtime. And I can see pros and cons to that. On one hand, if this is a very relaxed vacation and that's how you want to spend your recreation time, I think it's awesome. But I also think focusing on other stories takes you out of the moment of capturing this story of this special trip. And so personally, if I was going to do scrapbooking on the go, I'd be focusing on what's happening during these days of this adventure. So I look forward to answering more questions and having more discussion on this during our Q&A portion. All right, now we're going on to the how to get ready. What are the things you need to think about so that you can hit the ground running and make sure that this trip can be scrapbooked in the way that you want it to be scrapbooked? All right, so the first thing to do, and this can happen either while you're still traveling or when you get home, is to go through those photos. Delete the ones that are the obvious mistakes, the shots of the floor or a black screen. Delete some of the duplicate photos where you took multiple shots trying to get a good one. Well, delete all the bad ones. There's a lot of conversation about how storage space is cheap, and it is, but your time is valuable. And it takes time to go through multiple instances of a photo, and it's well worth it when you kind of have a better sense of which photos captured the moment, which photos are most important to you, and to go ahead and cull through those and try to delete as many as you can. It's always worth it, in my opinion. All right, I also want you to work on creating a project outline. You might even jot down a few notes before you go. You might jot down a few notes just, in your notebook or even just in your head while you're on the trip. What is the order of stories that I want to tell? Kind of how do I want this to flow, particularly if I'm doing a whole album, even if it's a mini album. Or even if it's just a series of layouts. What are the high points? What is it that I want to capture from this trip? What are the stories that I want to tell? And just to start to jot that down so that you can use it as a checklist later. Because so often in the moment, you have a really good sense of what this story meant to you, what this adventure, how it fit into your life, and the things we mentioned before about what are the themes. You had a good sense of that. But a month, 3 months, 6 months, or longer down the road, you have pictures. And those themes may not be as resonant in your mind. But if you go ahead and create that outline, no matter when you scrapbook later, you'll be able to jump back into the context that you had in the moment. And it won't just be a grouping of pictures about events and places you went. All right, and then lastly, I want you to set aside time to create. And this is either going to be right when you get back, if it fits within the scheme of your life, or it's going to be at some time in the future. But you should be thinking about when is the most practical time for me to sit down and actually fulfill this original vision I had, whether it's one layout, one photo collage, up to an entire album. Kind of think about when you want to do it and then mark that on your calendar as a deadline. This is when I want to have this project finished. Because it's when you map things out, both the steps and the end point, that's how you actually finish projects. And then before I go back to seeing my face, I want you to remember that creativity is a mindset. And it's, this title of this is Staying Creative Away from Home. And the more that you're remembering that you're a creative person, you're a scrapbooker, you're a memory keeper, the more you'll be able to bring that approach to your adventure and both be present in the moment and be able to capture and draw out the significant portions of your adventure. All right, so I'm going to stop the screen sharing here and go back to me. Here we go, guys. All right. So if you haven't seen the big red button yet, that's where you can ask questions and definitely vote up the questions that you're most interested in having me answer. And I will be diving into that with you guys right now. I want to welcome everyone who's joining us live today, as well as those who are watching in the replay. I know that many of you work or have other obligations during the day, and many of you are watching this after the fact. Another point that I want to make is that when you RSVP for one of these crowdcasts, that same link it sends you will allow you to join us live or watch the replay later. So don't ever hesitate to RSVP. All right, let's get into the questions. All right, so Kathy asks, I'm curious what your essential tools and items to take with you are. What size container do you take? And how do the essential tools change when you are flying versus driving? All right, so I covered some of this already, but let's go over it a little bit again. So when I am flying, I am very much a minimalist. I don't like to check a bag. And that's why on this trip, I had one carry-on suitcase for my daughter and I, and then we each had a tote bag on the plane. And so our memory keeping supplies were very limited. It's really my phone and my laptop. And if I was a digital scrapbooker, I'd be able to do some digital pages here on my laptop. If you're a paper scrapbooker, then flying is going to be more limited. And that's where I recommend something like a traveler's notebook, or Amy Tangerine has a series of books called the handbooks. I'm not sure if she's still making those, but I know I've done those before, where I'm bringing a pre-made album, a small album, you know, in the 6x8 size, on the road with me with a pen and some washi tape, maybe a few flat stickers, really minimal collection of supplies, and documenting my journey as I go. If you have a portable printer, that's something that you might want to bring along, or you just save room to add those photos later. So the more likely that you're flying, then you want to keep things very minimal. If you're driving, you do have a little bit more flexibility, but even when you're driving, I like to keep things very nimble and practical, and to really be realistic about what it is that you're going to be able to accomplish, what you want to accomplish during the trip. Because I know that it's tempting to bring lots of options, but it's more important to not weigh yourself down and to help yourself focus on what's most important. And often that's taking photographs, soaking things in, and maybe documenting a few notes, and keeping that mindset of creativity, and then making sure the physical creativity happens soon after you return home. In terms of size of container, I've taken anything from, you know, really small bags like this one up to that large tote bag that you saw. I think if you are driving, if you can fit everything that you want in a tote bag, that could be even, you know, a kit of supplies, a portable printer, like a selfie, you could actually get a lot into one single tote bag. And that can be quite the portable creativity station. But again, keep it practical and realistic about what you're actually going to create. All right. Sharon asked if I've used a traveler's notebook to document my vacation. And no, I have not done that yet. I'm super intrigued by this format for memory keeping. I've used it in the planning and bullet journaling concept. And this is, you guys have seen this before, this is my planner that I use, but I use this in a very practical, non-creative sense. It is lists of words, maybe some flow charts and diagrams, but it's not a documentation format for me. But I know that a lot of people are using that, and I think it's a really great portable solution for, I almost see it like a field notebook if you're a scientist, particularly if you're like an environmental scientist. That's how I grew up in my formal education. And taking that on the road, documenting what's going on, really helps you feel that gratitude for the moment, and making sure that you're capturing the moments as they happen as well. So I think that's a great option, and there's beautiful examples online. And if you've done one, I'd love if you posted it in our member group or on our Facebook page. All right. So Amy asks if we see the questions that you submit in advance. I definitely do. I often only looking at them right before I get started, because many of them are asked in that last 24 hours before this presentation. And she's wondering if anyone has ordered prints while traveling. I have heard of people do that before, especially nowadays. Many of the photo services, from mail order via persnickety prints to even your local Sam's Club or Walgreens, you could order directly from the app, and sending those orders in from your phone, I think, is a brilliant idea, so that your prints are ready to go when you get home. Anything you can do to be more proactive like that helps it from things stagnating. I know when we're traveling, we have all these grand visions and we have all this enthusiasm for getting something documented, and then real life hits. And what seemed so, what had so much energy and seemed so pressing, and it felt like it would just flow naturally, doesn't always happen as well. Because once you get home, you have to do the laundry and get back into the routine of things, and that all that creative energy kind of withers away. So the more you can do to get ready, the better. I know on our spring break trip, I used the Project Life app to create pages, and I loved being able to harness the energy I had in the moment to scrapbook on the go, so that when I got home, and inevitably that creative interest waned a little bit, I already had so much done that it was easy to finish up. All right, a couple more questions here. This one I'm not sure I have any answers for. Amy asks, are there any services for doing photo books where you don't have to be online in the moment? And I don't personally have a good answer for that. It looks like someone did reply with a comment saying that the Schmidt family uses a service called Bonus Print that allows you to create some things without, it basically uses downloadable software. So it sounds like maybe she's creating it on her laptop while traveling, and then can upload the final pages later. I don't know anything about that you could do on your phone, though. I would think that most services would allow you to create your photo book, whether we're talking about Artifact Uprising photo books, for example. I would believe that most of those apps would allow you to create your photo book without any connection to the internet. You just couldn't send it off for printing until you were reconnected to a wireless network or to Wi-Fi. I can't think of any that would force you to use the internet while you're creating it, particularly if it was an app on your phone, because that is downloaded. Obviously, web services that are on your laptop would need some sort of downloaded software, but apps on your phone, they're downloaded, and so you should be able to create that live. So that was you guys witnessing me thinking live in the moment, and it looks like you have some options there for those who maybe aren't in a range of a cell network or Wi-Fi while traveling. All right. Oh gosh, lots of questions. Thanks, you guys. I love this. Trish says, my yearly trip home now includes scrapbooking for a new baby. Any tips on doing a bang-up book for my niece? All right. I think when you're doing a baby book, is one tip is to kind of step outside the baby theme a little bit. I think, and maybe that's just a personal preference, and obviously everyone loves babies, and I of course do as well. But I think it's more interesting visually when you just maybe choose a color palette or choose really uplifting themes rather than just the pastel pink or pastel blue, or the rattle and things like that. To me, it's almost a little antiquated. So that's one tip, and that's personal preference, obviously. Focusing on words, I think, is really important. We often have, babies don't do a lot, so we often have lots of similar photos of babies looking cute. And so this is where the words from your perspective, as well as the family members' perspectives, can really add a lot of interest to the story. And then also, I think, and this is a piece of advice I have for any type of gift book, is to, we often put some of our best energy and our most heartful effort into gifts for others, and especially if they're not a scrapbooker, they may not recognize the level of detail and the efforts required to create something. So for gifts, I often recommend paring back to what's really fun and energetic for you and practical for them, so that there's a good balance there. So that it's just really a worthwhile endeavor. All right, I hope that was helpful for you, Trish. Definitely follow up if you want some more advice. All right, another question, Lisa Marie. She says, after a May trip, I have a group of digital pics I'd like to drop right into a photo collage in one swift move, getting it ideally as pages to my albums with the binder ring freedom. Do you know of a place where I don't have to place them one by one? Well, the first thing I think of, Lisa Marie, is to use Lightroom, because if you have a print template for a photo collage, you select the group of photos and then it creates the photo collage for you. So that kind of eliminates the decision making. I know there are web services, and those have changed a lot over the past few years, where you similarly upload a group of photos and it will create a collage for you. I know Shutterfly and Persnickety have things like that as well, where you don't have to place every individual photo. So what I can tell you is that definitely is possible. I also think that even using something like the Project Life app, where you're just bringing in photos one by one, if you kind of relax into it and just let yourself pick photos, you can convince yourself not to be a perfectionist about it and spend too much time agonizing over where each one goes. So if you can't find another option, even if you have to place them one by one, you can kind of just let go of the perfectionism and just plop them in there until you're done. So I hope that's helpful. All right. I'm gonna type a link in here real quick. Make sure you guys know where to find our other episodes. I'm putting this in the comment, crowdcast.io/scrapper. This is right. This is our Crowdcast profile page, where you can see all past episodes of Simple Scrapper Live, as well as episodes coming up. As I mentioned earlier, we have the new rules of scrapbooking coming up next week. It's going to be a longer, more in-depth session talking all about my 5 new rules of scrapbooking and how to implement those in your everyday creativity. Oh gosh, we have more questions. Oh my gosh, you guys are so awesome today. All right, last one, and then I will let you guys go. I try to be respectful of your time here. Dion says, while traveling, I try to document with both photos and words. The photos consistently happen, but the words sometimes don't. Do you have a formula or process or suggestions for things to try to include when documenting with words? Why, yes, I do. I have a formula. My formula is fact plus feeling plus memory. With every photo or with every kind of situation, I'm always thinking about what are the facts, what is actually happening, what is at least one relevant fact that I can document. How does this experience or photo make me feel? You know, that it's pretty self-evident that, you know, what am I really feeling inside, or what are the other people feeling in the moment? What is the context? What is the meaning behind it? And then a memory, because almost everything in life I always think about these threads through time, and every experience has a connection to some previous experience that you or someone else had. So when you're on a trip, I'm constantly remembering, oh, I remember I love this type of fudge, or I remember when I went here as a kid. So I always think about one fact, one feeling, and one memory for every moment that I'm trying to document. And that's a way to not just capture what happens, but how it fits into your larger life story and adds that level of meaning that makes the whole story richer without feeling like you have to capture absolutely everything. Because in the end, it's all about what it means to you as the storyteller, as the memory keeper, and not necessarily every single thing that happened. That's what your family is really going to appreciate in the end, is what you really felt along the way. So thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful to you. I love having these episodes of Simple Scrapper Live. I hope you guys are enjoying them as well. And I hope if you've not yet checked out the membership, I hope you do that, because it's really the place where I spend one-on-one time with all of our members. We have a wonderful team that helps everyone else out, and a teaching assistant that's always engaged and nudging everyone along with weekly challenges and lots of fun things like that. So I hope you guys have a great week, and that your next adventure away from home is full of creativity, and that you are more prepared to get it scrapbooked. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.